Hello, everyone, and welcome to our November 2020 book club event. I am your BingeBooks host. My name is Alessandra Torre, and I am joined today by best-selling author Jan Moran, and we are going to be talking all about her fantastic books, including her most recent release, Coral Wedding. So welcome. It's so great to have you here. Jan, do you want to give the audience just a little introduction to yourself?
Thank you, Alessandra. Oh, goodness. I am here in Southern California. I'm in San Diego, but I'm originally from Texas, from Austin, Texas. So you'll hear a little bit of that accent, and that's where it's from. I've lived in Boston, and I just love to travel. So you'll find a lot of that, a lot of travel references in my books. And I live near the beach, 5 minutes from the beach. So, of course, I would write beach books, and I don't have to go far for inspiration.
I love looking at your backlist. You have so many great series. And if for someone who's watching and maybe is new to your writing, can you describe the differences between the series? Are they all women's fiction? Are they, different settings or different groups of women or families? Can you kind of give us a tour of your major series?
Oh, sure, sure. I began writing with historical sagas, and they were 20th century, but still in the women's fiction genre because those books dealt with relationships, often multi-generational families, often secrets. I love family
I love
secrets. You'll
secrets.
find, yeah, you'll find a lot of that there as well. So I started off writing The Perfumer, the winemaker, the chocolatier, uh, definitely a theme going on there. And I love to write about women at a particular change in their life. They're standing on a threshold of something new and different, whether they're 30 or 45 or 65. They're standing on that threshold and wondering, can I do it? And of course, my heroines always can.
Yeah.
So my historical sagas I love. Those are long books. They're rich in detail, and those I have three that are set in Italy, between Italy and the United States, and then I have one that's set all over Europe. My first one, The Perfumer, was about a French perfumer during World War II. So of course there were a lot of there were scenes in France and London, Poland. That was really a book of my heart. That was my first novel, and based very much on family stories of what had happened during World War II. My husband's family. So then after that, I needed something a little bit lighter, and I wrote the Love California series, which was a lot of fun based on my friends when I first moved to LA, and they were all in the creative fields. And so each one of those six books takes people on a trip. The first one is Paris. I have Ireland, Monaco, Australia, Paris. Did I say Paris? Paris is always a good idea.
Yeah.
Remember? So
And each
Audrey
one is
Hepburn.
a different woman. Is that correct?
Yes,
A
yes.
different
So
friend.
it's a
Okay.
group of six friends,
Mhm.
and each book focuses on a different friend. So, but they all interact together. So you'll see them going from book to book. And then I went into my
Quick
beach.
question. Sorry,
Yes.
quick question. Because those are all in such different locations, did you actually travel to these locations, or was your research, you know, through books and internet, or how did you bring those worlds to life?
Yeah, I love to travel,
Mhm.
and I've traveled all my life, starting with semester at sea when I was in college. I circumnavigated the globe for 4 months, and first stop was Spain, and I keep going back. I just love Spain. And then others, I had a company prior to writing, and that was about 10 years ago. My novel career began. But before that, I had created a touchscreen for Sephora stores. And this is Fragrance IQ, Skin IQ. I sold the company in 2015, but I think it might still be there. I don't know. I sold the company and I haven't looked since before the pandemic. But I was all over the world with that. Sephora in Paris. That was their headquarters. I sold into the duty-free stores. Their headquarters were in Hong Kong. I was all over, and that was really a wonderful time. And I got a lot of writing done on the plane, which is one of my favorite places to write.
Oh, I can't even imagine. And I can't imagine how many stories, ideas were birthed just going to different locations. You have a huge wealth of knowledge to pull from. So I love that. So I interrupted you. You were talking about, so that's your love. What's it? What series is that? Your love?
Oh, The Love California.
Love California.
Yes. And then from there, I went into The Seabreeze Inn. And that one was a little different. This story was about a woman. She's 45. Her husband has passed away very quickly, unexpectedly. And she went to check the 401k. She had been a stay-at-home mom, had two girls just going off to college. And she had been a homemaker and an art teacher. And she thought, well, at least I'm taken care of, right? Well, she wasn't.
Yeah.
The funds were gone, and so she had to begin to find what happened to them, and she found it. It's her husband had bought an old, grand old house that was designed by by the first female architect in the state of California, Julia Morgan, who also created I can't think of it, the publishing magnate in California. It'll come to me later, but it's in the book. But anyway, Seabreeze Inn, that was the one that began this story. And it's her and her sister, who is also reeling from a poor breakup. And so the two of them take off for Southern California. The house is also a character in the story because the former owner, she was an art collector, and she developed Alzheimer's. So she would hide things in the house and forget where she put them, bits and pieces of journals, items that might have historical significance. In each book, my readers love to say, what's she going to find this time? What is Ivy Bay going to find this time? And so the house is giving up its secrets slowly. We're on book number 8 coming out after Christmas, Seabreeze Reunion. So that one has just been a lot of fun to write. She does find a love interest, the mayor of this small town, who was also her beach crush back when she was a teenager, and her surfing crush. So that's a lot of fun. We have second chance romance. It is a clean and wholesome. So you can listen to those audiobooks while you're in the car with the kids.
You did have a helpful note from YouTube. Hearst Castle was designed by Julia Morgan. So is that?
There it is.
Yeah.
That's it. Yes. And I even recreated the pool in a smaller manner. You might remember that. It was used in a lot of the Chanel commercials. So I really had a lot of fun weaving in actual facts and history with this fictional world.
And you mentioned clean and wholesome. So are all of your books clean and wholesome?
Primarily. That's a spectrum, of course. What I like to say is tasteful. My historical sagas do have love scenes, but they're very tasteful. And I wrote those when my mother was still living, and I would have been mortified if she had read something that wasn't appropriate.
Yeah.
She was very old school, and she was also my first editor. I loved her to death.
I love that. We do have a submitted question from a reader. She said, "How would you describe the difference?"
Yes, between women's fiction and romantic fiction. I gave a talk on this just last week at the 20 Books Conference in Las Vegas, a writers' conference. And the women's fiction, the inciting incident is about the woman's emotional journey. So something blows up in her world, and she has to make a choice. It's either external or internal, where she says, no, this is no longer acceptable. I'm going to change. And now love might find its way into her life along the journey. But the inciting incident and the character arc is about her journey and how she becomes uh, self fulfilled through her own efforts. So in romance, the inciting incident has to do with the love interest. So that's what kicks it off. And that's the arc of the story is will they get together or won't they? And I will say, someone said, well, you're the queen of the slow burn. And I guess maybe I am because I thought, a woman at that age, although, I've been married and when you meet that person, there's just a spark. You feel it, I don't know how to explain it. But at that age, and just having come out of a marriage that she thought was a happy marriage, but then it turned out it really wasn't quite so happy. That old house he bought, that was for his mistress. So oh, no, I know. And she's in there too. She comes back after the house, So our Ivy, she has to really reach deep inside and find out what she's made of and stick up for herself and her children. And I just love that about her. So Ivy and Shelley. Shelley is the younger sister, kind of the wild child, and she's just a lot of fun too. So I just love writing about them and their whole family. The mother was a descendant of a Spanish land grant family in Southern California. So we have a diverse cast in that as well, which I love to write about. Someone said, "Oh, like real life," and I said, "Yeah, like real life."
And so what about the ending? Because romantic fiction requires typically a happy ever after. So what about in women's fiction? Do you need or do you deliver a happy ending, or sometimes does it end in tragedy?
Well, women's fiction is a very broad genre, and it's really an umbrella genre. So under that could be historical sagas, family sagas, circle of friends, best friends, also psychological drama, suburban psychological drama. We've seen a lot of that with Girl on a Train and things like that. So it's a very broad category. An HEA or happily ever after is not necessarily required. So, and that's really the difference in women's fiction and romance. But I like a happy ending. So in my series, there will be at the end of each book there is an emotionally fulfilling ending. The first three books, there are little mini cliffhangers, but you still get that emotional fulfillment that they've come together. Something is going to happen. We don't know what exactly, but they've decided that this might be worth pursuing. Whereas in a romance, they are together. And so I'm on book number 8. There are a lot of hiccups and missteps along the way, and that's been a lot of fun to write. Yeah, so there was a spinoff from the Seabreeze Inn, and that's the Coral Cottage, and that one is one of Ivy's best friends from from her teenage years. So her name is Marina Moore, and Marina is stars. She's a news anchor in San Francisco, and she's newly engaged, and to a fairly high profile member of the community. And then it comes across the news. There's another woman who is in charge of the local and celebrity news. And lo and behold, she finds out that her boyfriend, her fiance, has just proposed to another woman. And yeah, and these things happen.
Is she on camera when she finds out this news?
She is on camera, and she has a meltdown on camera and slides out of the chair. She's fumbling, and she quits before they fire her. So they sort of had it in for her. The station had just been sold. She has a very young boss. I think I said he's tragically hip, in his 20s. And she's 45 and she still looks great for her age. But the news is, entertainment is, often there's a shelf life. I hate that phrase, but well, there it is. And so she quits and she runs away literally to her grandmother's cottage in Summer Beach. And her grandmother is the indomitable Ginger Delavie. And I love writing smart, sassy grandmothers. I love that. Maybe it's because I'm one. My granddaughter's upstairs right now. And I just love it. Ginger was a code breaker. She was, she has a lot of secrets as well. Once again, the family secrets.
Uh-huh.
So she meets a man who is a Pulitzer Prize um, uh, journalist. And of course, there's a floppy dog who's always causing trouble. He has a little boy. There's again, a lot of fun things that come in. I see. I love Ginger. Everyone loves Ginger. So I love Ginger.
I
So that
love.
one, I'm on I just came out with book number 4 in that series, which is Coral Weddings. And then I'm working on book number 5.
And I have to say, so I jumped into the series with book 4, which is Coral Weddings, your first one. And just to any readers that are listening, I had no problem coming right in mid-series, but I could definitely, you do a fantastic job of giving the reader enough information that they're easily caught up without just, info dumping. But also just making me be like, oh, I wonder what this is about. So I can definitely see the experience would be best starting with book 1. But if someone does stumble across and jump in at book 4, I guess book 4 is Coral Weddings. It was great. So I'm curious, she is quite a cook. I mean, there's a lot of cooking references. So do you have a background in cooking, or do you enjoy cooking?
Well, I do. I have friends who are chefs,
Okay.
and so I get a lot of information from them. They've owned restaurants. They're really fine chefs, and I love to hear how they look at food, how they approach it. And food is love. It's sustenance. And so Marina's dream, was to open a restaurant. And so she opens the Coral Cafe, which is the second book in the series. And I love that because she was doing what she needed to do for her children as they were growing up. She was widowed at a very young age, and her children weren't even born when she was widowed. And they never knew their father. He perished in Afghanistan, so he was a war hero. And she had always her favorite part of her life was when they were first married and she was working at cafes, and she just loved that, and she loved cooking. Her grandmother was a good friend of Julia Child. She was the wife of a diplomat, so they had met in Paris. And again, these real historical references that I love to bring in. And so she has a chance now to do something that she has always wanted to do in life. She did what she had to support her children and get them on their way, as many of us do. But she still had a deep love of something that she wanted to see through. And, that's how I feel about writing. That was my deep love that I came to later in life.
I love that. We have a lot of love coming at you from the different places on Facebook. Books and More with Jewish Ladies says hi. Ian from the UK says good evening. Rochelle said, I love the historical secrets that come in your books. And also Salty is also from YouTube. And to anyone watching, if you have any questions about this book, Coral Weddings, or any of the Coral series, or any of Jan's books, don't be shy. We'll try to answer as many of those questions as possible. So we did have 2 pre-submitted questions. One said, what is your favorite part and least favorite part of being an author?
Ooh, that's a tough one because I love everything about it.
Uh-huh.
I think my least favorite part is when you're so excited about a book and you dive in and even though I outline, I'm always embellishing that outline. So many times it looks nothing like it did in the beginning. The Winemaker's one of those books. And my least favorite part is probably when you write yourself into a corner or you think it's a corner and you go, oh, what am I going to do now? Is this going to be the book that I can't write? And I'm on book number 25. So, maybe a little bit of that imposter syndrome that we all have from time to time. And then the best thing for me to do is to take a break from it. And when I come back, invariably, my mind has come up with something else, often at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I jump out of bed and I write something down and I go, that's it. That's it. That'll work. And so.
And it actually does work, because when I come up with great ideas at 3 in the morning, in the morning, they look horrible. So you do get good ideas in the middle of the night sometimes.
Sometimes, yes. And then other times, like you, I look at them and go, what was I thinking? That was quite a dream.
I have to say, because I write romance and suspense. So for me to keep the tension on, all I have to do is kill someone off, or, heighten the love situation. But you don't have those crutches is what I, to lean on. So with women's fiction, how do you continue kind of keeping, is it interpersonal conflict, or what are the things that kind of keep that book exciting and fun as you go in? Is it things that are happening to these characters externally?
Yes, yes. And we do have some romance. I see the sun is shining. It's Southern California. Let me move up a little there.
Good. Looks like you're an angel.
My halo. But yes, we still have some romantic tension as well. Because I'm dealing with a larger journey, there can be all sorts of things. There can be natural disasters. And, in Southern California, we say we have, our seasons are fire, earthquake, and so on. And so natural disasters, there could be lawsuits, there could be problems with neighbors, interpersonal problems with family. I've got, in both series, I have sisters, and the sisters are always, they're sort of bickering about things. They see things differently. They're very different sorts of people. Ivy is very practical, and she had children that she had to raise by herself. Her younger sister was single, carefree in New York, having a great time. And she was an event planner, so she was on the party circuit. So they're very different. They see the world in different ways. And then in the Coral Cottage, the older sister was the news anchor, so she had to be very focused and hit her mark all the time. And the younger sister was a theater actress, musical theater actress. So that's a lot of fun too, because she also returns. And if you like musical theater, you'll find a lot of references and scenes. They throw Christmas productions, and it's just a lot of fun. But that interpersonal dynamic can come within the family, also with the parents. It's natural for us at a certain age to worry about our parents. Is that valid or not? Maybe our parents are stronger than we think, and we think, oh, just because they're that age, we should be worrying about them, when actually they're perfectly fine and off, running around the world. And so there's a lot of that. And then, of course, whatever their business is, there are plenty of roadblocks and hurdles that are thrown up in their path, like real life.
That makes perfect sense. Nathalie says, as an author, how do you handle anything real life historical in your stories? Do you embellish fictional stuff for real people? So do you understand that question? Does that?
Yes. And I have, but generally the real people are very high profile. So there are some legal issues there, if they're a high profile person. So in one of my books, I had Coco Chanel. And we know that during World War II, she was at the Ritz. We know some of her background there. And in The Perfumer, which is about the female French perfumer during World War II, she also arrives at the Ritz in one of the scenes and sees Coco Chanel. And so I will weave in things like that. Julia Morgan, the architect of the Seabreeze Inn. Yeah, I love to weave in real historical characters. Hepburn's Necklace is my latest historical saga, and I loved writing that one. That one begins on the set of Roman Holiday with Audrey Hepburn. And our heroine, Ruby Raines, is an extra in it. And she's a young actress, very young. And she is from Texas. So in that book, I got to bring in a lot of my past. So I wrote about the Texas Hill Country. I also wrote about Hollywood, and I lived in LA for years. So I was really able to bring in a lot. And then, of course, it begins in Rome and then continues on to Lake Como, Lago di Como, which is one of my favorite parts of the world. It's just, it's magical. So how could I not write a magical book with that setting? Also a second chance romance, and a double romance. So we have a romance with the older actress. It's a dual timeline, and she's older. It starts when she's younger and then continues on later. But now her niece is also in the picture. So it begins on her niece's wedding day. And, well, I won't give it away, but there are some issues. There are some problems, because it wouldn't be a good story without problems and challenges. So, yeah. And the necklace refers to Audrey Hepburn's necklace that she gave to the main character for luck.
Oh, I love that. Eileen says, loving your books. Darcy says, love these two series. And we do have, this probably will be our last question. We're running out of time. If you have any final questions, now is your moment. Eileen says, do you set a schedule for yourself to write?
I do. I do. Once I begin writing, I take that story from the beginning to the end. And only once I reach the end will I go back and begin to read through and change the beginning. That's my method. It seems to work, but as always, we can get sidetracked, and so sometimes we wish we had a little more time. But I've always worked well under pressure.
And so how long does that take for a first draft? What's the start to finish time frame?
Oh, it'll take a couple of months for the first draft, and then typically we spend longer on the read through and the editing and all of that than we do on the first draft. So if it's historical, it can take months. For my historicals, it can take 6 to 8 months for that first draft. They're much longer books, first of all. Everything that goes onto the page has to be checked. Lots and lots of fact checking. And as with anything, though, the more we write, the more adept we become. But yes, my historicals, I definitely need a year to a year and a half on my historicals. Wow. And my women's fiction, 6 months, 8 months, somewhere in there. So, yeah.
That's fantastic. I do want to share, Jan was kind enough to do a giveaway for us. So we're giving away a signed paperback of Coral Cottage, and we have 3 winners from those that RSVP'd for this chat. So huge congrats to Annette M., Michelle G., and Susan B. We will contact you via email to arrange for that delivery. So thank you so much, Jan, for being here today, and and to all of the readers who joined also. If you're watching the replay or if you're here live, where can they find your books?
Yes, the best place is to start at my website, which is Jan Moran, JanMoran, janmoran.com. And I'm available widely, so you'll find me on Amazon as well as Barnes & Noble, Apple, and then also I'm an audiobook, wherever audiobooks are found. Um, I try to make everything available as widely as possible, and people will also find hardcover books and large print as well.
Perfect. And as always, you can find Jan and our future book club events at bingebooks.com. Thank you all for coming. Thank you so much, Jan. And I hope you guys have a fantastic holiday season. And we'll see you next month at our next book club. Thank you all.
Thank you.